guys, it's Miss Jenkins. I am back with you again this week to create some fun and beautiful art projects. I look forward to seeing the results and to seeing all the cool stuff that you're going to create. I hope you guys are doing well, and I want you to know that I really miss you, and it brings me great joy to know that you're doing okay and that you're being healthy and smart and especially creative. Love you guys. Alrighty, you guys, let's go ahead and get started on this week's project. So this project is using foil, cardboard, and Sharpie markers. However, if you do not have foil, cardboard, and specifically Sharpie markers or some kind of permanent markers, then you can just do this on paper, and I'll show you sort of the alternative way to do this. So this is what's called foil painting. And what we're going to do is we are going to work on this piece of art step by step. And remember, if you don't have the materials that I start off showing you, you're still going to do the exact same steps on paper when we start drawing, okay? So you wouldn't do the beginning steps where we're actually wrapping the foil on the cardboard. This project is based on a lovely artist named Sandra Silberweigh. She does these really cool portraits that don't really look like anybody specifically, but they're very, expressive and stylistic. And this project is going to be assigned to 2nd and 3rd graders, but again, anybody can do it. Adults too, have fun. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about materials. So you need a piece of cardboard that looks, like it's from a box. If you can get maybe some help cutting that down. If you don't have cardboard, you could probably use, I don't know, like maybe just a thicker paper, and we'll just see how that goes. And then you need foil. Okay, so you need a sheet of foil and cardboard, and you need a paintbrush, but it needs to be a really skinny paintbrush so that you're able to use sort of the bottom part of the paintbrush. We want to use this tip right here, but you don't want it to be sharp. You want it to feel like it's smooth and that it's kind of a skinny tip as well, okay? And then you need colored Sharpie markers and then also a black Sharpie marker. So those are the items you need. And again, if you do not have permanent markers, you can just have regular markers, and you can just do white paper and a black Sharpie marker or a black permanent pen of some type. Okay, so go ahead and gather your materials, and if you're doing the foil portion with me, then you want to lay your foil down nice and smooth on the surface that you're going to be working on, so as smooth as you can. And then it's up to you if you want the shiny side to be more, if you want the shiny side facing up or down, it doesn't really matter, they're both going to be shiny. And then you put your piece of cardboard right in the center of your foil, and you take your foil and you sort of tightly but carefully wrap it around the edge as if you're wrapping a present. And then you also need masking tape, okay? If you don't have masking tape and all you can find in your house is just regular tape like this, that's fine too. But be generous with your tape. You don't want to put too little. You want that every time that you fold a piece down, that tape is going to secure it all the way, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. I'm going to pull it just enough to give it a little tug so it's nice and tight, but remember, not so tight that you accidentally tear your foil, especially if you're handling it, roughly, or on these corners where it very easily can tear because of the sharper edges. And then I'm going to get my tape to be as wide as that area, and I always begin by sort of putting my tape on the actual piece of foil first and then giving it a little bit of a tug, and then I flatten it down. And then on our edges here, because we don't want the edge foil to be like sticking out off of the sides, I'm going to ask you to fold this in a little bit so that now you have a diagonal line rather than a straight line, and you're going to do that on all 4 sides. So you'll do it over here as well, just a little bit of a small fold on both sides so that now you have your edges facing like this rather than being straight. And then you can go ahead and fold over this side. Again, nice, you know, firm fold that is attached nicely to your board. And then a little bit of a tug, and then fold that down using the tape. And same thing with this side. We're going to fold this over, pull it just a little bit of a tug, and then use your piece of tape to secure that final edge there, okay? Okay, so this is what it's going to look like on the back, and this is what it's going to look like on the front, nice and flat. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our drawing, okay? So we're doing something with our paintbrush today that's called repoussé, or metal tooling. And this is where, you know, in ancient times, they would actually use thin metal sheets that they pounded down with a hammer, and then, excuse me, and then they would hammer these little chiseled tools into the metal sheets to be able to get them to like raise or come down. But this is sort of a play on that idea of metal tooling. So using, oh gosh, excuse me again, using the bottom end of your paintbrush, not the bristle side, we're gonna start pushing into our foil gently, okay? Now when I say gently, I mean you wanna be able to see that you're pushing into it, but you want to make sure that you are not pushing so hard that it's going to tear through the foil. And if it accidentally does tear, just slow down and remember that it's not really going to show once we're add all the colors to it. So I'm going to start over here by sort of drawing or pushing into the foil to create this round shape, which is going to be our face, okay? So it's just this bottom and side portion, and the rest of the face becomes basically the edges and this top edge and the two right and left edges, okay? So that's the face. Then I'm going to add 2 lines that come like this. And what you're seeing here is me just pushing into the foil, which is pushing into the cardboard, which is below. And if you're seeing these sort of bumpy things, it's because cardboard has those like ridges, right, that show up. But that's all part of the process. It's totally fine. Now we're going to go ahead and create the details of the face, okay? So I like to start by coming up here and sort of doing this top curve that comes down to the middle of the face and creates the nose, okay? Do you guys see how I did that? I started here, I came down, I went over, and then up. And then on this side here, I'm just going to add a curve like that to where our nose line is now sort of in the center of these 2 curves. Then I'm gonna add the eyes. Now, this is not supposed to be realistic, obviously. Think about like African masks, think about Pablo Picasso's Cubism style. These are kind of the things that are inspiring this. So I'm going to draw 1 eye over here. And when I say draw, that means I'm just pushing in with my tool. And I'm going to do another shape over here. And mind you guys, they do not have to be the same size. They can be 2 different sizes, which is what I'm doing over here. I've got 1 smaller, 1 bigger. And then again, at this point in the game, you can add a mouth, and your mouth can be however you want it to be. It can be opened, it can be closed. I'm gonna do a lip like that where I have this part and then this curve down here. And at this point, it's all about just adding designs and details. So you can follow along with me if you want to, or you can just do your own thing. So I'm going to start by adding a circle inside this eye to make the iris, which is the colored part of the eye. And I'm going to do these triangles right above the eye that sort of create my lashes. And then I'm going to do some lashes that come all the way down here. Really exaggerated, right? But that's what makes this project so cool. And then I'm going to come over here, and I kind of like what I did on my other piece where I made this eyeball, or this iris, I made it into a color wheel. So I split it in half lengthwise, vertically, and then another half right to left horizontally. And then in each quadrant, I separated it into 3 sections so that you end up with 12 pieces. Now, if you don't end up with 12 pieces, that's perfectly fine. I'm just doing the color wheel because I think it's kind of fun. And then I'm going to do some sort of curly lashes down here. Now remember, this is not a self-portrait. It is not a picture of you. So I say this especially to my boys who are thinking like what I'm doing is maybe too girly. It doesn't really matter because it's not a picture of you. If you want it to be you, then you can look in a mirror and try to use some of your own facial features and adapt them into the style. That's totally fine. Okay, so I'm just going to keep adding patterns. Keep adding patterns. And the most important thing is that you have a variety of things happening inside your patterns. So I did this sort of curved half circle all the way through, but then I did something a little bit different in each of them. And then I'm gonna do these like vertical lines up until I get here. And then I'm gonna just keep going around these curves, basically using the same kind of curve, okay? Then I'm gonna add some wavy lashes on this side. And notice, you guys, that as I'm drawing, I'm really making sure that everything I draw ends on another line or begins on a line so that everything becomes a closed shape, okay? So I'm gonna do that to kind of add another element to my nose. And then I'm gonna do these curved lines here on the cheek that are connected to those long lashes. And then I'm gonna do a repeated circle shape. And I'm really not pushing hard, which is why my foil is not tearing. So one of the things when I've done this with students before is if you tear your foil one time, you will never do it again because you have now learned how hard you shouldn't push versus what's okay, all right? So for my neck, I'm gonna do this sort of zigzaggy thing. Remember, you do not have to look exactly like mine. Ultimately, it's up to you. If you want to create some stuff, copy some of my stuff, that's fine. Over here, you can do whatever you want. On my original one, I added these sort of circle kind of curl things, and that's what sort of made it me, is that I have curly hair. So I just went through here, and it doesn't even have to have anything to do with hair, you guys. It can be whatever you want it to be. Ultimately, it can just be a background. It can just be, you know, straight sort of zigzag strands that you then turn into these sort of stripes. If you're a boy and you want to make it hair that's your hair, then you just adjust it down here how you want, or it's just not hair at all. It can just simply be a cool design that you repeat. Does that make sense? All right, so here we are. I'm almost done. You see what I just did there? I just poked through my foil, and that was because I was closer to an edge, and there must have been a little section there that was like sunk into the cardboard, and so when I pushed, it broke through. But guess what? No big deal, because ultimately, once you add all your decoration, it's not even going to show up. It's not going to be obvious. Okay, so at this point, you're just going to start coloring. So you're going to, those lines that you have there with your foil, you can either use them as your guides and then, you know, color things in between first. Or you can choose to use, if you want to be able to see more clearly, if you're having trouble seeing, you can go ahead and use your black Sharpie to go right on top of all those areas that you marked with the edge of the pencil. The edge of the paintbrush. You can literally just go right over them, trace right on top of those areas that sort of dug into the foil. All right, and you can just do all of that on the whole thing. And remember, guys, if you're doing this on paper, it's the exact same steps. Just don't, just ignore the beginning where I'm applying the foil to the cardboard. You can just do the drawing with me on regular paper and you'll be set to go. Okay, so there we go, there we go. I'm just tracing over all my areas that I used my paintbrush on, and I'm tracing over them. And again, I am not making anything up here. I am following exactly what I already did. So at this point, I'm not really inventing anything new. I'm simply mirroring what I already have. And then once you've done that, then you can start adding color, okay? So the going over it with black Sharpie is going much faster because you already have your drawing there. And so you sort of are just following it, right? You're not having to create anything new. But like I said, you can either choose to add your colors first and then outline everything with your black Sharpie, or you can do what I'm doing, which I personally prefer to do the black first because it helps me see everything more clearly. And sometimes the shine from the foil can create some hindrance to you actually seeing things more easily. Make sure you're, sitting in good light so that you're able to actually see everything that you're doing. And here's my mouth. And let's say you've done something and you don't like the way it looks. You can simply take your finger and sort of rub it away and then readjust by redoing the tip of your paintbrush to reestablish the line that you actually want, okay? That is how you do that. So while you're doing this, also, I want you to remember not to have your fingers and your hands all over your picture. If you notice, I'm only holding it from one edge, on the very edge, because if you get your fingers all over the foil, your fingers will release, oil from your skin, and that makes it difficult for the Sharpie to actually stay on the foil. So try to not touch it with your fingers too much. And if you actually need to hold it, like support it, you can always sort of support it with a piece of paper like that you rest your hand on, okay? So I'm going to stop outlining there and just do a little bit of coloring with you. And then I'm going to stop, and you guys are going to finish yours all by yourself, okay? Now, you don't need to push hard when you use the Sharpie markers. They just glide right on, okay? Sometimes a color on the foil is going to appear a lot lighter than it appears, on the actual pencil cap, on the actual marker cap. Like if you look at it, it's a really subtle green, and that's totally fine, okay? That is totally, totally fine. It's all about variety, right? So you want light and dark of colors. If you wanted to do this in just black and white, that's fine too, but then I would suggest actually coloring things in, sort of having a pattern of black and white so that it's essentially silver and black, but you've colored everything in. I'm going to outline that with that. And we just go around and keep going. So I'm choosing to leave this part, the silver of the eye, around the iris because I'm kind of treating it like the white of our eye that is around, that surrounds the iris. So I'm just going to leave that silver. And as you work through this, you can certainly leave some areas of the foil just totally showing, you know, like it's silver, like it's just part of your design. So you just keep coloring, you keep coloring, you keep coloring, and when you're done, you end up with this marvelous foil painting that just looks so, you know, so intriguing to look at, right? It's beautiful, it's colorful, it's interesting. And then you can see here on the right and the left where I might have supported it with my fingers a little bit, and that rubbed off a little bit there, but it's no big deal because all you have to do is you can just go back and just color in those areas again as needed. And that is it, my friends. This is the end of the project. I hope that you enjoy this, and I'm so excited to see what you do with this project. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.